Hello and welcome, you're back with the Lone Wolf, once again. In today's video I've found an article that is a little bit left field from the other content that I've been putting out on the channel. But I think it will really help a lot of men out there who are potentially faced with having to pay alimony. Now in the UK it's not really the done thing unless you're very wealthy. But I know that in North America especially, alimony certainly is levied against men in the divorce process. So there might be people out there who are faced with divorce on the horizon, and this article has some pretty decent methods on how to avoid paying it as much as possible. Now obviously the best way of insulating yourself against alimony in the first place is not to get married. That would be the first port of call. Just don't get married, full stop. But for those of you who are already in the game and can't do anything about that, this article offers quite a few good suggestions. So it's off a site called divorceandyourmoney.com, and I'll provide the link. 9 expert tactics to avoid paying alimony recommended. Alimony can cause serious financial strain. Being newly single and having only one income means you've already had to make big changes to your monthly budget and lifestyle. Some individuals may do something sneaky, like devise clever plans to get around the strain that alimony causes on their finances. However tempting as this may be, it is important you approach the matter with care, concern and ethics. This way you can avoid any legal ramifications that may result from attempting to avoid your soon-to-be ex-spouse. The question is, how can you legally avoid handing over loads of money to your ex each and every month? Strategy number 1, avoid paying it in the first place. The best way to get out of making alimony payments is to avoid the need to make them in the first place. Many couples that seek to marry opt to protect themselves by drafting up a prenup agreement before the marriage is made legal. This document includes full disclosure of each individual's income. It includes the assets that each spouse will bring to the union. In this manner, the document lays out exactly which marital property belongs to whom. This special document should be prepared by your attorney, then approved by a judge before the marriage. But, as you'll know from a lot of famous cases, prenups don't always work. There's loopholes and workarounds. So you need to make sure that it's watertight. If you did not think to do this prior to getting married, don't worry. You can create a similar document even after the wedding is over. A postnuptial agreement contains most of the same info you get in a prenup, but is completed and made final after the marriage is finalised. If divorce is already in your future, these two options will be of no use to you. You can instead consider creative ways to keep your spouse satisfied without the need to make alimony payments. When negotiations take place, consider offering them a larger share of marital assets, a larger chunk of retirement accounts, or even the marital home. By doing this, you may save yourself from having to make alimony payments. Be sure to keep an open line of communication between yourself and your spouse. Carefully consider their wants and needs. That way, you'll have an edge on the situation. Just be sure to get the help of a mediator or attorney who will help negotiate a fair settlement. Lump sum payments, sometimes called buyouts, lump sum alimony or spousal maintenance buyout, is the payment of alimony in one sum. Instead of getting periodic payments made over a designated time frame, the spouse on the receiving end is given one large payment. This can be done in the form of a cash lump sum payment or through marital property division. In a cash lump sum, the spouse paying the alimony will write one cheque for the entire amount he or she will owe to the dependent spouse. In marital property division, one party agrees on giving up a portion of whatever assets they're entitled to over to their spouse in lieu of paying alimony. If you choose to take this route, consider a few things before any decisions are made. For example, how it affects your taxes. In 2018, tax differences exist for the treatment of lump sum alimony payments versus payments of alimony over time. Talk to an accountant for the best information about your situation. Okay. Strategy 2. Prove your spouse was adulterous. Laws about paying alimony vary from state to state. Even with these variants, many do not allow unfaithful spouses to vie for alimony payments. This is going to require more than your word indicating that your spouse was unfaithful during your marriage. You must bear the burden of proof. This may come in the form of showing photographs and video to the judge of your spouse. You should get started immediately on collecting witness statements and any other incriminating evidence you can think of that shows your spouse was undoubtedly having an affair. What are you meant to do? Like, hire a private investigator to follow your wife around until you get video and photographs. You will spend a lot of money on a private investigator to actually, well then again, it's going to be less than what you're going to pay out in alimony, I suppose. So you're insulating yourself in that respect. Cost benefit. The judge will have the final say about whether or not your evidence counts as proof to support the claims of adultery and how it will affect any alimony payments. Yeah, they might just throw your evidence out. pay the PI, get all the evidence and the photos, and then they might just chuck it out of court. You're at the whims of the legal system. Strategy 3, change up your lifestyle. You've already made some major changes in light of your divorce. It is rare that the higher earning spouse will be given alimony payments, so it's a good time for you to consider just how much money you truly need to cover your expenses each month. If you earn more than your spouse, it is likely you will be responsible for making alimony payments. And to avoid this conundrum, consider downgrading. A lower paying job, for example, may be the way. Downsize your income and live lean. You will need to carefully plan and budget your way through, but a little work and help from friends and gurus will save you a lot of headache. Yeah, you could take a lower paying job, completely adopt a minimalistic lifestyle. You know, you might want to live in, say, a motorhome or something like that, and have a nomadic, truly lone wolf existence. You might exit the marriage and go become a complete lone wolf, massively downscale the income, and that way it'll minimize the alimony payments. Strategy 4, end the marriage ASAP. Your state is going to determine the amount of alimony that a spouse pays. However, one factor that states often consider is the overall length of the marriage. Typically, the longer a person is in a marriage, the more likely it is that you'll be faced with higher alimony payments. If you know your marriage is not going to last, consider ending it as quickly as you can. Stretching it out longer and longer just means more emotional pain and longer lasting alimony payments. Is that always true? I mean, just off the top of my head, I think Mike Tyson's divorce, like the first wife, was it Robin Givens? He was married to her for like a year and had to give her $10 million. And she never threw a punch in her life, at least not against an international boxer. So, yeah, she got 10 million, and just think what Mike could have done with that money at the time. It's a ridiculous lump sum. But as we know, yeah, the family courts and marriage courts are completely deluded. Deranged even. Strategy 5, keep tabs on your spouse's relationship. Again, this comes into like the private investigator nonsense. Some states will stop making payments mandatory when the spouse who is getting them begins living with a new partner or significant other. This info may be written in the fine print on your divorce decree. Ask your attorney to go over the section about alimony payments with you for the best information. A new marriage will usually allow the payments to come to an end, so keep track of what your ex-spouse is up to when it comes to their relationships. Keep tabs on them via social media and through friends. Make sure you are aware of when these life changes occur, so you can get those alimony payments to cease. Do you honestly think that Dr. Dre's ex-wife, who's getting $300,000 a month, is going to advertise the fact that she's with some new dude, or that she's going to marry this new dude? She'd be insane to do that. She's getting $300,000 from Dr. Dre. Nonsense. I'm going to address that anyway in another video. That news article last week blew my mind. $300,000 a month. Strategy 6, have a judge evaluate your spouse's fitness to work. After a divorce, a spouse may prefer to remain as a homemaker or stay-at-home parent, even though this causes financial hardship or is not 100% necessary. If your spouse is educated and has the skills to obtain a job that pays well, you can ask a judge to perform a vocational evaluation. It is an objective assessment that provides you with insight into what your spouse can potentially earn by taking a job in their area of knowledge and skills. Even if a job is not available at the time you go to court, alimony may still be ordered on a temporary basis. This is still preferable to payments that are issued on a long-term basis or indefinitely. Bear in mind your spouse may just need some space while they work to get on their feet and establish their own household, find a job that pays well, and learn how to live on their own again. Short-term alimony payments will help them along and get them in the right direction faster, especially if they took time off to care for children or help you advance your own career. All these court proceedings, they take time, they take ages, and they also cost a lot of money. And it's all going to be on your dime. So again, people that are potentially faced with divorce and alimony payments, I really feel for you. You have my compassion. But I'll be damned if I'm ever getting involved in this garbage. In the West, absolutely not. Absolutely not. But hopefully you find these tips useful. Strategy 7, prove they don't need it. Some spouses who are simply being vindictive seek to gain alimony payments even if they do not need the money to maintain their standard of living. For example, does your ex have access to a large monetary sum, like a trust fund or stock portfolio? Do they have an inheritance or savings account? If so, them being unemployed may not affect their ability to transition to a single lifestyle. Your ex may not even need an alimony payment to make this lifestyle change. Be sure to investigate whether or not your spouse has any assets in their name that would keep you from having to make alimony payments. To do this, you may wish to hire a professional forensic accountant to help you track down this asset or assets. While accountants definitely charge a premium for their services, your avoidance of lengthy and costly alimony fees will be well worth the price. Excuse me. I've always wondered about this, if this actually happened to me, what sort of workarounds would there be to avoid this problem? Like, could you take out insurance in an insurance policy during the marriage where I guess you maybe flew to some far-flung country that you potentially might want to move to, like bought some gold and then buried the gold in a marked location like Treasure Island or something, and then conveniently dig it up years later and it's there as your insurance? Would that work? I mean, you can flame me in the comments based on, I guess, the veracity of that plan. Or maybe crypto. Maybe crypto could be your salvation. I'm not sure if you would have to declare that on the asset declaration forms and all of this, but potentially, unconventional means of protecting wealth within the marriage. Let me know in the comments. Be sure to investigate whether or not your spouse has any assets in their name that would keep you from having to make alimony payments. To do this, you may wish to hire a professional forensic accountant. Okay, I've read that part. Never mind. Strategy 8. Your spouse may not get alimony if they don't have custody. Well, when don't the women get custody? It's nearly always custody to the spouse, the female spouse. If your spouse is not awarded sole custody of the kids, they may not need money from alimony payments. Caring for children means that you have a significantly high cost of living. Yeah, but child support. Child support's meant to cover that, not alimony. Taking away the financial responsibility of providing care for your children may just lower the amount of money that is needed for your spouse to maintain their living standard. Why do they have to maintain their living standard? I really don't understand this concept. It may just give your spouse the chance to find their footing on their own in terms of finances without the help of payments. Your ex will not need additional money, and you will decrease the amount of alimony you can provide by being the sole caregiver for your kids. You will face high costs like daycare, groceries, education and clothing in paying for the children, which will cut into your expendable income. Some children have special needs or ongoing expenses like diapers, doctor visits or tutoring. The costs associated with raising a child or children may just eliminate your ability to pay alimony altogether. In some cases, your spouse may even be given the order to make child support payments that can help take care of the costs associated with caring for and raising a young child. Be sure to carefully consider if you can be the sole caregiver for your children. You should never use this strategy as a means to avoid paying alimony or get child support monies from your spouse. And then lastly, strategy 9, put an end date on alimony payments. They do not have to be a lifelong affair, yeah, but they often are. You should strongly consider including a termination date in your divorce decree. This will remove the need to return to court at a later date, saving you from financial burden. The payments will simply terminate. End dates for short marriages are usually 1/2 the length of the union. It is much harder to predict the alimony termination date on a marriage that was lengthier, however. You should speak with an attorney to figure out what end date would be reasonable for your situation, given the duration and individual circumstances. Permanent alimony may still be ordered by the judge during your divorce finalization. It is usually issued when a spouse lacks the ability to support themselves due to extenuating circumstances such as age or disability. Yeah, it's basically just payoff for like past use of an intimate region, isn't it? If we think about it. It's like driving a Ferrari like for 2 years and then still having to pay for the Ferrari, like make the payments on it after it's been confiscated and someone else is using it. Garbage. Conclusion. There are a few good ways to avoid paying alimony. They are all legal and ethical, which is the best approach to take in this situation. Not only is it easier on your conscience, but you'll be doing right by the courts also. In order to get around making these payments, you may wish to use one of the expert strategies here instead of using a risky method like spontaneously quitting your job or filing for bankruptcy. The important thing is to be smart and think everything through carefully. You must be willing to sacrifice something in your life to keep your money closer to you and away from your ex-spouse. Consider making any changes you can afford to, downsize your life, apply for a job at a company that pays less, and as always, speak with your attorney for extra help and guidance. Yeah, and I would echo that last point. So although I've shared this article with you and gone through some of the points and some of my own personal views, if you're faced with this difficult situation, consult a good attorney to resolve the situation appropriately. Okay, to all of those guys there who may be faced with this problem, I hope the article helps. I'll include the link as well. And best of luck with the whole process. Thanks for listening. You've been with The Lone Wolf. See you next time.